schedule's not good. It's not difficult. It's Louisville's a good team, but they're not ready to challenge Alabama. None of us believe that, I don't think.
But again, we go back to schedule. I mean, when that game was scheduled, that's a program on the rise. They're a top ACC team. I mean, Alabama. Look, you can talk about the cream puff schedule in the SEC if you want, but Alabama every year starts out with a tough game. Louisville, Florida State last year, USC the year before that, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Virginia Tech. I mean, those are all top teams.
You're about halfway there, Mike. If you're Alabama, if you're Ohio State, if you're now Clemson, I expect you to go out and schedule another one of the behemoths or something close to it that you know. We don't know what Ohio State's going to be in 5 years or Clemson's going to be in 5 years, but we're that close to knowing that they're going to be great. Louisville, we don't know what they're going to be. They're going to be a top 25-ish kind of team. It's a respectable game. Now, if Alabama did what other schools do, like a USC in particular, but there's a number of them now that go out and schedule 2 Power Fives. Absolutely. Schedule Louisville. And you know what? Schedule Oklahoma as well.
Okay. Look, if an SEC team or if an Alabama team loses a couple games, then I look.
Florida had to play Florida State and Michigan last year. Georgia had to play Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. They played 2. Why can't Alabama do that? Auburn's got just the Washington game. Okay.
Well, Florida State and Georgia Tech are in-state rivalries.
Exactly, but then they went out and scheduled another
because they
Michigan or Notre Dame.
Because they have to. Alabama doesn't have to.
Well, of course they don't have to. They don't have to schedule anyone.
Well, they have to schedule 12 teams.
Yeah, they can go out and schedule another FCS school or whomever, Colorado State or somebody. I just don't. They're playing Duke next year. What?
Look, three of the most successful teams of the past 20 years. 10 years. Wisconsin, USC, Florida State.
Absolutely, those 3.
Alabama has played those 3 teams the last 3 years. They have won those games by a combined score of, let me do a little quick math, 76, 114 to 30.
Tremendous.
They beat 3 of the best teams of the last 10 years. They beat them 114, I believe, to 30. I mean, what more do you want from Alabama? Do you want them to play a P5 team every week? They have scheduled. They played Florida State first game last year. They played USC.
Don't tell me West Virginia. I don't want them playing West Virginia unless it's a second game of the 4 that they get to schedule.
Virginia Tech the year before that.
No, it needs to always be Oklahoma, Ohio State, USC, Wisconsin's fine, Penn State, Michigan.
If they scheduled Virginia Tech in 2013, that means they scheduled them 2008, 29, 2010. That's back right in the era, the Frank Beamer successful years. I mean, you can't. I'm not an Alabama guy either. I'm a Tennessee guy, for God's sakes.
Duke next year. That's their big non-conference game.
Okay, so 1 year out of 10, they play a week schedule.
And Louisville.
Again, they scheduled Louisville when Louisville was one of the top teams in the ACC. I don't know what to tell you, Mark. What more do you want from this team? They win 13, 14 games every year. It doesn't matter who they play.
All the credit in the world. I just called Nick Saban the greatest coach in the history of the game. I'm just wanting them to schedule
over the last 3 years. They've obliterated 3 of the top 15 easily winningest teams of the last decade: Wisconsin, USC, and Florida State. Probably 3 of the 10 winningest teams. Obliterated them 114 to 30.
The USC game was 52-6. The other 2 games were competitive. They weren't nail biters, but they were competitive games.
35-17 to 24-7. So 59 to 24. They more than doubled them.
You have to watch the games, and I'm sure you did at the time, and I did as well. The Wisconsin game was a game into the 4th quarter. But regardless, yes, they were much better than those teams, and they took care of business, and they scheduled 3 really good teams. But, man, West Virginia and Louisville and Duke, that's your best game?
The West Virginia game was the closest of the 5 previous seasons.
I know, but that West Virginia team wasn't that good.
I don't know what West Virginia did in 2014. I'd have to go back and look at that.
I guarantee you that they weren't that good. They were
we can
okay.
find out real quick.
They're West Virginia. 2014. I'm not coming up with that season off the top of my head. They went 8-5 or 7-6.
2014, they went 7-6.
There you go.
They lost the number
by 10 points, and they went 7-6.
They lost to number 2 Alabama, number 4 Oklahoma, number 10 TCU, number 12 Kansas State, and then they tripped up against Texas.
And they lost a bowl game.
The bowl game.
Arizona State. That the year?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, West Virginia. Oh yeah, like Liberty Bowl, Music City Bowl,
Liberty Bowl. Let's not confuse Memphis and Nashville ever again, Mark.
Okay.
So I mean, that 7-6 is 7-6. I got it, but they lost to the number 2, the number 4, the number 10, and the number 12 team. That West Virginia was not that bad. They had 4 losses to teams ranked in the top 12 in the nation.
All I'm saying is Alabama gets 4 non-conference games. They could do something similar to other teams in the nation, and 4 of them are in their own conference that actually typically, not every year, but go out and schedule a second difficult game. And so Florida has had to deal with Florida State and Michigan, for example, in the same year.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
If they were playing Penn State this year, absolutely fine. Play 3 nobodies. And
I understand what you're saying, but let's be clear. Florida doesn't do that every year. So the year before, their big out of conference was Massachusetts and North Texas. The year before that was New Mexico State and East Carolina.
But they've got Florida State, one of the perennial powers in college football, not Louisville or Duke.
Yeah, but you're using Florida as the example of what Alabama should do. And I understand what you're saying. I got it, but I don't know what more you want from Alabama. They're not going to schedule a P5 team.
More difficult.
The past 4 years, Louisville, Florida State, USC, and Wisconsin. What more do you want from that team?
Pitt this year is playing Penn State, Notre Dame, and Central Florida out of conference. Pitt.
Okay. Good for them. Or if they win those 3 games, then put them in the CFP. But they're going to get crushed by all 3 teams.
Yeah. I would love for Alabama to play Notre Dame, Penn State, and Central Florida. And you know what? Most of the time they beat all 3 of them. But that would be tremendous if they went out and actually played that kind of schedule, especially when they get a gimme when Tennessee's down and then they get
come on.
The games.
You couldn't have used another team.
Well, I'm just using as an example.
Arkansas. Couldn't you use Arkansas?
They've got to play against Tennessee, and then it comes up the other years.
You were just telling me about how Butch Jones had brought Tennessee back to relevance
for 2 years,
20 minutes ago. The 2-9 win seasons.
Fine, Alabama beat 2 good Tennessee teams in the last 10 years.
What? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one was a close game. The other was a blowout, if I remember correctly. The one in Tuscaloosa was close.
Yeah.
Very close.
Very close. But again, I just don't know what you. Well, I don't. I mean, but then Alabama has. This goes back to the SEC thing. I know non-SEC fans are going to hate this, but Alabama also plays Mississippi State, LSU, Auburn, week in, week out, Texas A&M. So yeah, I got it. But I don't know. I mean, if everybody else in college football did it, then that's fine. You would expect Alabama to do it, but I just don't see that I don't see that their schedule is soft like your like the narrative you're spinning here.
I'm going to send you the schedule of about 15 other teams, non-conference schedules from this year that are extremely difficult.
Okay. Or are you going to send me their conference schedules too?
They can't control the conference schedule. They can control the non-conference schedule.
Okay, wow.
Which they shouldn't be able to. But anyway,
the reason they're allowed to control the non-conference schedule is because they can't control the conference schedule.